And welcome into the SorareData NBA show. I am Andrew Laird. You can find me as Lairdinho on Sorare. Joined once again by the Sorare FP guys, Alex Hooper, TiltCityFC, Keith Jamison, Gator Guy 231. Today to talk about depth. And this is a topic that we have discussed off of this show a few times. I think we have all equally argued on both sides of all of it. And so we came here to hash it all out. Gentlemen, how's it going? First off,
I can't complain.
I'm doing much better than Costa Rica.
Bad day for CONCACAF today. Hopefully it all picks up from here. Yes, so World Cup is going on. So the SorareData soccer shows were decided to take the week off, but NBA plows on. So here we are. Happy Thanksgiving week to all those who celebrate. We will actually, before I go any further, due to the holiday, I just want to point out that the next game week deadline is a few hours earlier than we are used to because there's an early game on Friday, or early-ish. So just make sure that you're not like sitting down at your computer at 6:30 Eastern ready to put your lineups in because they'll be dead. Anyway, depth. So the way that this came up initially between the three of us was somebody that we know bought a bunch of, it was kind of like talked about their strategy of, I'm just going to buy a bunch of guys who like don't play a lot right now and have low L10s. And then when they, when the guys in front of them on the depth chart get hurt and they like go into these super roles, they become these game week cheat codes, then I'll have them. And it was more to like play them as opposed to sell them. If you want to go through that whole player sell, check out last week's show. We went through it all, and then we all promptly ignored the advice, or at least I did. But so what we said earlier, like the initial response to that whole idea was kind of like, yeah, we get it that you have these guys already. But the counter was kind of like, are you tying up ETH or dollars, whatever you're using, in players that like theoretically you're not using possibly anytime soon, in these players that you're not using, versus just not buying those players and buying guys that can help you now? Keith, you were of the opinion that like you really shouldn't stock up on these guys, the ones that like aren't helping you right now, and that you should probably just like take that pool of ETH that you use to kind of distribute out to all the L10s of 9 to 15 who score 7 to 9 and buy like a better player. Are you still kind of in that realm of thinking?
Muted, buddy.
There we go. Oh, you're still muted, Keith.
There we go. My bad. I was going to say, I think so. I don't think I'm as strong of a stance because I do think that we've seen some of these guys peak so hard that if you're even now 2 minutes late on news, like the opportunity is gone until like the next opportunity hits, which we can talk about with depth.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
Like, there's always like another opportunity for another guy. But I do think we've seen, like, we joked, what was it, 2 weeks ago about your Kuminga stash, which is looking pretty good right now.
Best player on the platform.
I mean, we kind of joked among the three of us that, he has cheat code upside because his L10 gets so low because he just will go, a few games of playing a minute and registering 0. Like, there's nothing better than that, by the way, with some of these guys to play minute or to get -2. That would be fantastic if they're on my bench. But yeah, I think that there's more credence to it, but I think it's credence with the strategy, like not just stacking up guys that literally just don't have a route to those games, but maybe figuring out what could happen to cause this to happen, not just go, oh, he's on auction, oh, he's cheap, oh, he sucks, let me buy him. Like, I think that's still a very bad strategy. But if you go at it and you go, I'm going to stack up the Kumingas, I'm not going to sell my Nas stock, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, ever until it works. So like somebody like that, I think that I'm more on board with that than I maybe was a week or two ago.
Okay. And Alex, I don't remember if you were like passionately against the idea at first. Just the way that your demeanor is, I'm going to guess no. But like, where do you fall now as opposed to like back then? Like, because I don't think your opinion has really changed that much.
Not a ton. I think where I did settle when Keith and I had the conversation was I do think star depth is pretty important because like the upside of some of the higher level guys is capped at a certain point as you go up. So if you're able to change those guys out and just pray for one of them to pop off when you play them and then figure out the guys at the bottom, that's where I kind of land. So I think Kuminga is kind of in a separate conversation. I don't know if he is, like the low level DeRozan or if DeRozan is the high level Kuminga, but basically the guys who play enough to suppress their L10, but sometimes they pop more than you want. It's the volatility still within the playing time, and I think that's probably important on both sides of the spectrum. You know what I'm saying? Like if you can have depth with guys like this, I mean, there's not a lot of guys like this. You can kind of farm for dudes who step into oft injured spots, but like the Warriors, the only team who, when they rest the entire team. And then all of a sudden there's a number of guys, but Kuminga is like the guy there. So it's hard to like lump him into any other group than himself. Other than that, though, I don't hate the strategy of buying up those guys. You just have to know that there's a direct route to them playing, and you got to hope that when they get their opportunity, they fit in a good enough lineup.
Yeah, I think we don't want to ignore that. Like, if we could have every card, like we would. Like, obviously, this is a game of like distributing resources. So, if you're somebody who can afford to, like, yeah, I'm just going to buy everyone, and it doesn't matter, like, go nuts. Please prop up the market. That'd be great. Anyway, the Kuminga thing is kind of funny, or it's really the Warriors, because you're right. Like they do, like when they're like, all right, we're resting our stars. Like these guys are really not playing. So like we get these opportunities, Kuminga, Jermichael Green, Dante DiVincenzo, like these guys that like you would never put in a lineup unless this happened. So the Warriors actually give us like the best case scenario when it happens going into a game week, as opposed to like mid game week, because we know like, all right, now I know I can play Kuminga. I will say, as somebody who also played Green and DiVincenzo this week, I think I'm only playing Kuminga from now on in these situations. Like it's
you know what's fun. You know what's funny though about Green and DiVincenzo and like why Kuminga's the outlier is because they have a role. Even when everybody's healthy, they'll play just enough to make it not like a cheat code L10. It's the fact that Kuminga, go back to by the way, the triple middle finger is fantastic.
I love it.
We should have a prop on how many middle fingers Kuminga will have by the end of the season.
I just don't know why.
You go to SL5 scores.
Why do you sell Kuminga?
Yeah, well, I mean, unless you sell it at the top. If you're the fingernail on the middle finger, then I don't blame you.
Yes.
But like, so like, here's why he's such a cheat code, right? I can't zoom. That's 6 minutes versus Rockets, 8 minutes versus the Knicks, and produced a little bit. You know, you're 24. I'm guaranteeing that one was somebody else sat, like Clay sat, or
this was an absolute blowout. That's why.
Yeah.
Okay, or that happens.
Like they killed them,
right?
Yeah.
But like the fact that he gets out of the rotation so quickly is why he's a cheat code, because then he'll get those. Like, just imagine those a couple bench games if he would have checked in for a minute. Like his L10 would be down to like 6.
Yeah.
I mean, like, 20 seconds. Let's get Kuminga in the game.
Yeah. Shout out for the negative 1.6 also. I mean, if that
right, that's a fantastic score.
Have we checked
Except
to see if Steve
probably
Kerr
still had him
Sorare?
in a contender lineup.
Yeah, Steve Kerr on Sorare. Anyone wants to look into that? This feels just a little too convenient here. No, but I think that Kuminga is I don't want to call him an outlier. Maybe I'll call him a unicorn just because I have 2 of them. But it is funny to see how, and who was it? Yonosei Soccer said only on Sorare where we can use investing principles like dollar cost averaging using L10s. And it's like the Kuminga like Kuminga's prices, like his rares are like
Probably pretty pricey.
like
That's actually
0.075
not
is
bad.
the last sale, and this was after the run up. So this is actually
Right.
down. Like that to buy a card for $83 that the guy's an L10 of 9, like
Right.
is just wild.
And
And I
by
wish
the
I had
way, I know you did the little Davis little thing. I'm sitting here the same way I did with Davis, going, if one for 0.7075 came up, I think I'm buying it. Just because, like, when you do know that it's one of those games, if it happens on a Monday or a Friday, or if we see, like, I haven't gotten this deep, but if you see the 3 games in 4 with a away back to back,
Yeah, in
so
Denver.
it's like home, yeah, in Denver or in Salt Lake City, like Utah, like an elevation game. It's like, oh, they're all out.
Yeah,
right. Hold on. Is that a James Harden joke in Atlanta?
The Atlanta flu is real.
Oh, okay. Okay, there it is, a James Harden joke. Okay,
not specific to him, but yes.
Yeah, and maybe not even a joke, really. More just an observation.
Not really. Yeah, not really. It's a real thing. It's funny with Kuminga too, because like if you do spend that on him, there's a chance it takes you a really long time to actually realize that return. And there's also like, I can't think of another player other than maybe Luka who gives you the best chance to just 5x that investment in one weekend. So it's like, again, I think Unicorn makes sense, honestly. He's just the only person with this singular role, I think, in the entire NBA. It's
so
like
it's a
Strider
situation. Mm-hmm. So, Alex, I want you guys both to answer this question, but I know mine. What competition is Kuminga best in? A Kuminga rare, what competition?
Western Conference special.
What do you think, Laird?
So I think the only reason why I think it's actually contender is because he's not going to score 50. And if you don't have Luka, and there are a lot of people who don't have Luka, I'm just not sure I get why you think it's champion, because you're like, oh, now you can fit in like another elite guy. But like Kuminga's like realistic upside is what,
30.
like 30
to 40. I think 40 is there's like a 39 in there.
I mean, it's
a
like long
40.
time ago. Like, I don't even like to look at last season.
Yeah,
but like I think you could say it's reasonably 30. And I don't know if 30 cuts it for a single spot in champion, even with Luka. Because there are guys who are playing Luka and getting 50 out of their other spots. So that's why I don't think it's like a lock for champion, even though you tried to walk me right into it.
That's kind of
I did.
That's kind of my answer too, because this is becoming more and more of a roster construction answer for me.
Yeah.
Just because like I'm seeing the scores that are winning, and I feel like if like playing a Luka Jovic, even at an L10 of 4, and he gives you a 30, it hasn't been worth it, because then all of a sudden, I mean, last week in that Heat week was such an outlier, not just because of the Heat, but kind of because of them. The scores were bananas.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was the weekend slate, and by the end of Friday, there were like 12 guys with 60 plus, and then Booker had like an 80, and it made the weekend like borderline unwinnable. So like you needed those mid-tier 50, 60 guys, or else you didn't have a shot. And I need to take the time to look into it more to see what an optimal roster construction looks like, and like what tiers of L10s are more often scoring, double or triple their normal output. That might all just be anecdotal. There might not be a big enough sample size, but like I'm not seeing these types of lineups win a ton. And kind of on the other side of that too, like when Terrence Davis went off, he didn't register in any of the top lineups because there were 30 of them played, because who's playing Terrence Davis? So there's a lot of weird variables, but as of this exact moment in time, unless Kuminga allows you to not just get a third stud, but I'm talking like, I don't know. I had the Doncic, Tatum, Morant lineup, and they all put up 60s, and the bottom end guys still didn't get me there. So I don't know what you would need, like Luka, Giannis.
You didn't have
top shelf Jokic. I don't know.
I mean, I think the reality though too is just like maybe the evaluation on that roster construction is just understanding what everybody else has versus what you have that week. It's like, like I think this game week, if you didn't, it might not transpire this way, but like if you didn't have Shake Milton, you probably were not. If you were thinking you were going to win, you probably should have lowered your expectations because I think he was like a 6 or something like that, 6 or
that, yeah.
8. It was something super low, and his expectation was like 30 to 40 easy on a week that then all of a sudden Ja Morant kills the Memphis values, right? So I think just like sometimes, I think just sometimes you have to. I mean, Philly actually blew out the Nets, so it's supposed to be the other way, but. I think just understanding what the optimal roster constructions are, but what the optimal L10 guys are, who are the top plays. And then if you don't have all that in champion, then maybe it is, like you said, Laird, maybe it is actually better to go to contender. I don't know.
So,
I don't know. We understand where everybody's putting people though anymore. Still.
Yeah, still. So to go back kind of a little bit to the Kuminga thing or Milton or whoever it is, I actually think it's less about like, oh, he lets you play Doncic and Giannis. And it's actually like, we've talked about this, that like there's really only like 2 guys that are going to smash every night. And actually, Keith, you're starting to think maybe Giannis.
I think it's Curry. I mean, but Curry's upside has been so insane. But yeah, I mean, Luka's the one constant.
So it's Luka, right? So anyone who's like, oh, I'm going to play Kuminga. Like Kuminga alone doesn't let you play Doncic. Like you can play Doncic anyway. And so it's like, it's really the third star, right? Like that's what we're considering.
Yes.
But like
even the fourth player, I think matters a ton.
Well, so that's kind of where I was going with it. That let's say it's either the third or the fourth. Like it's the 2v2 of, do I play Kuminga and Donovan Mitchell, or do I play like Markkanen and DeRozan or something like that? Like I think it's a much bigger gap, obviously point wise, like L10 wise, between Kuminga and whoever the star you're playing is. But like those two have to outscore the not as good as, who was the first guy I used? I don't even remember now.
Markkanen and DeRozan.
No. To pair with Mitchell.
Whoever.
Oh,
yeah.
Sorry.
Just like, I think you're better off trying to get 2 guys who almost certainly each get to 30. Yeah. And then you're playing obviously 2 guys who easily get 30 can also both get 50. But then if you're playing the Kuminga and star, like that star has to perform over expectation because Kuminga's 30 is good for his L10, but it might not be enough if your star is just average. And that's why I'm not like convinced that just that 2v2 means like, yes, you definitely play him in champion.
See, the only problem with that one, like I'm gonna go less on the Mitchell and more on like the Markkanen and DeRozan side, is because those guys are like established, but they're not superstars of any mean. They're like mid-tier guys. Those mid-tier guys still, like if you pull up DeRozan, he has a lot of 20s,
sure, and
like low 30s, and then your spikes. Whereas if like a Kuminga, this became the Jonathan Kuminga show, by the way, not the depth. But like, I feel like his floor when Golden State's only dressing 7 or 8 guys, and he's going to be locked in at 30 minutes, his floor is actually very similar to DeRozan. So then you're looking on the other side of it, because now I'm comparing Markkanen to Jason Tatum, And I like my chances of Jason Tatum outscoring Markkanen more often than not. So it's really hard. It's not a right answer.
Yeah, no, there isn't. And what's funny is that the two that you're playing, like the Kuminga plus whoever, is also just as easy to play in Contender. Like now you can play a star in Contender where most people don't play stars because you have this Kuminga card that fills in. Yeah,
I will say Contender's soft. Contender's soft right now.
Is it soft or just the player is not as good? Like, isn't it just that?
Maybe that. Maybe it's if you are paying attention. But I do think that a lot of people are just getting stuck into here's who I have in my gallery or here's who I have left. And they go into Contender. I don't think a lot of people are building Contender first and then Champion. I still think it's Champion, then Contender leftovers.
Do you know why that's the case? Because Champion's easier. Like it's easier to build a Champion lineup.
Yeah. But this is kind of like
the easy one first.
Not to go back to like
football. No skill in Champion. Come on.
I mean, it probably doesn't as much.
Play the best plays.
To go back to football, like, I mean, Laird, you remember this one. I think Hoop I talked to a lot as well. It kind of reminds me of when I had my little underdog run during the summer. And it was because like all of a sudden it became this obvious inefficiency that this tournament has these great rewards and everybody is just waiting till the end of their gallery to fill it. And I was like, what if I fill it first?
Yeah.
And so I'm sort of feeling that vibe as I'm doing like Contenders now. Because I'm like, why don't I put my best values here? Because I can always then buy a star and Champion. I mean, always buy a star. If resources don't matter, but you can always get like a top end guy and just pair him with kind of whatever scrub of the week comes up. That's kind of where I've fallen, that I think Champion really does suit the scrub type, like the 8 to 9 guys, because you can really efficiently exploit like L10, you know, like this week just coming up, like I'm huge on the Clippers. I bought Reggie Jackson's and Norm Powell's overnight. They're both sitting at 22s, and I think realistically they're guys that can shoot the 35 to 50 range.
Yeah.
But I'm playing them. I'm planning to play them in Contender.
I'm glad you brought them up because I was going to earlier when we were talking about the Warriors, but like the Clippers, like have this, it's a very different situation that they sit their two best players or I'm
forced to.
I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt here. Paul George and Kawhi Leonard don't play.
Their two players sit. Yeah.
Their two players sit. And then like, you're not really like there's no Kuminga. And so you're kind of like, oh, let me just take the other guys who usually play all the time. And they don't score that much, meaning fantasy points, because Kawhi and George take up all of the usage. So they just kind of step up. Like the Warriors, they just sit everybody. And so it's like they're really, it's just a different situation. I love the Clippers call specifically for that reason. Talking about this is making me like think that they absolutely nailed the progression track here. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't think I've given them enough credit for this, that like literally you buy cards with relatively low L10s to compete for star limiteds, and you use those in limited champion. What are they called? Limited champion or champion limited? I mix it up all the time. You do well there. You win some rares. Even if they're not top tier, now you can play rare Contender. You do well there. You win star. Like, bravo, Sorare NBA.
So
because we don't have
this
that
isn't
sport.
I'm going to go to the question game because this is something I've been debating a lot, and I'd love to get your opinions and chat's opinion. But like, I was like looking through. It was actually John Conchar. It was the reason it came up, my boy. But his rare got me. So I had like 2 rares and 2 limiteds, and I was playing all of them for like the last 2 weeks. And the rare got me. Don't hold me to these numbers, but it was something like 37. And I look at the lineup right underneath, and the limited got me 35. But the price difference between a limited Conchar is like 0.018, I think, right now, or 0.015 for a limited, but it's 4 to 5x for the rare. And I started just sitting there from a budget standpoint. I think if you are mindful of a budget, that not playing 2 limiteds in rare competitions is kind of silly. I'm just
playing.
curious what you guys think about that, like using those, because more often than not, it's 1 to 3 points.
Okay, I'm glad you brought this up because this actually brings me back to our topic.
Great.
But I'm going to answer your question first. I don't think it matters yet. Like
I don't either.
If you if resources are limited, and for most of us they are, getting the rare isn't worth it. Like those 2 points are not worth it.
Correct.
But to go back to the depth thing, our good friend SR Monkey, who is not in chat, but usually is, it has been buying up a ton of cards, like specifically depth, like so that he can train these cards, and so that when they're finally like ready to play, he's like, I've got 8%, 9% cards because I've just bought them regardless of price. Obviously the price is now higher now, but he's like, but now my cards that everybody is going to buy are more valuable because they can score more points. So he's a big XP person, like in every sport.
Truth.
It's like he goes through and like maximizes XP. And I don't want to get into like a whole XP conversation, but for those of you who are unaware, basically you get more XP on your card if they're in lineups that score more points. So like if you're doing training lineups, you should put like the best cards that you're not necessarily using together so that they maximize their XP, or you distribute them with other cards. There's a whole thing. I really don't want to get into it because I hate XP and I hate training, but it makes sense. And so there's a benefit there to like buying these cards now and just training them up. And Keith, I completely forgot your question now that I've talked about it.
No, it's fine. You answered. It was just the whole, you don't need 5 rares.
Oh, yes.
Like, you should definitely take advantage of the 2.
So I think, So I think XP is important. I don't think it's so important that you need to get the X, because there's an XP difference obviously between rares and limiteds. And I just think it's just not worth it, like price wise yet.
So can I tell you, even like furthering my take, what I think is like a really good strategy for like a budget player that wants to get into rare is try to find that cheap punt of the week type of thing. And while everybody's running on the limiteds, go get the rare. And, you know,
totally
hopefully you have like I mean, if you're a budget, maybe you don't have a Luca, but hopefully you have a star or 2. Now use those star limiteds in rare champ or rare contender. Use that star and then fill with the cheaper rares. I think that's the end route. You know, you're talking about progression. I think that's the progression end route.
That's my upcoming rare champion lineup anyway. It's the limited Luca, limited AD, and then rare Terrence Ross, some other guys. Also, really quick, I wanted to point out the winning lineup currently in limited champion has Kuminga in it. I didn't consider looking
at not pointing that out.
And that's why it's the Kuminga show.
AD
with De'Aaron Fox,
Brunson, Lowry. Oh man, and yeah.
So
Luka hasn't played yet.
Are we just going to gloss over like our epic AD moment? We're not going to talk about that more. Like that's Alex's like one of his shining moments. Is he ranked 4th yet? He should be.
He's 5th.
Oh God, it's so close.
So
that was so fun. He's gone on like the most insane run. He obviously listened to the show and was like, I'm going to prove these guys right.
Hire Luka, or Giannis.
It's been helpful. Why is this? What is going on here?
I mean, we say Davis and Messi shows up. I see no difference.
Yeah. I mean, he certainly moves up after last night's game.
Head of Giannis. Oh my God. That's amazing.
All right. Y'all ready to pump Siakam now?
No.
Is that Laird business isn't done yet.
No, Siakam was the perfect example of a player that cheap, I think you should buy. Like you buy the injury dip.
Yes.
Like we wanted to talk about this today anyway. That like, I don't want to say you can't lose on this, but the number of people who get out of star cards because of injury, because they don't want to wait like 2 or 3 weeks, is staggering. And so Siakam is the perfect example. The only problem, and it's good that they do this, but I'm also bummed that they do this, that Sorare stopped the auctions. Like, I think part of the reason Siakam like doesn't move much is because like you can't buy them. I think it happened with Damian Lillard too. Like, you look at this, like the volume just like goes away because, and now people are already buying him, but like,
and it's still too low.
God, there's actually 2 that stand out that are just way too low right now. Should we say them? Is this our pump of the week?
sure.
Time for the pump. Alex might shoot these down. This is not as like straightforward, in my opinion, as AD was, but Halliburton is still too low, in my opinion. His usage numbers are just insane, and Indiana actually might be good. So he has no reason, and he's got the peaks that you want to. Doesn't turn the ball over a ton for a point guard. So I think Halliburton is a guy I could see doing more of the. What's his L10 right now?
48.
I
actually was going to
that's the only thing that's hurting him. That's hurting him then.
Yeah, like I considered that, and I was just
that's
like,
too good of an L10.
Like, is he better than SGA or Mitchell,
right,
or Durant? Although,
I mean, his role is. I mean, his role is the same as all those.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, stat wise, he's obviously right there. Like,
okay. I should give my buy call right now. He's injured, but on the L10, go down to 23, Desmond Bane, or 26.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go pick up a Desmond Bane here shortly. No, 26. He's 26. 26th place.
Oh, 26th place.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. Desmond Bane. If that floating average is about right, 0.0327.
Wow.
Like, look at his year before he got hurt. Look at his year before he got hurt. He was gonna be an all-star. He was ripping it up.
I mean, I assume these auctions stopped too, right?
I'm assuming so. He's been injured for a bit of time. That was the whole Conchar.
Holy cow, he's low.
Yeah, that is low.
So that'll be my pump of the week. Desmond Bane. But you gotta but the point is you're not gonna be able to get him back for a little bit.
I mean, 2 to 3 weeks has already been won.
For December. It's a perfect time.
How about Cade Cunningham?
He's just been awesome. Cade Cunningham might be out for the year. Don't touch him.
So I was really trying to buy Cunningham. And basically, I think I was trying to buy him for last auction, and they had like stopped auctions. And so everybody who was selling him was like, no, I don't want to sell him that low. And literally I gave up, and I was like, all right, I just like won't get Cunningham. And then that news came that like his season might actually be over. And it was like, oh,
you're like, thank God.
Okay. Maybe not.
Yeah. So this is Jeremy put in chat. I know I talked with you two about it because I pulled off a deal to get him. I love Ben Simmons right now. My God. I think Ben Simmons, he's nowhere on the ranks. I don't even know where he's at, but the role that he's starting to have with the Nets, holy crap. He could be a Sorare monster for the next month at a really, really depressed L10 because he was so bad for 3 years, 2 years.
It was a long time.
But he just does so much defensive peripherals. They're actually using him on the pick and roll. They're using him facilitate. They actually have the ability to play like 5-out basketball. And Kyrie and KD seem to actually let him have the ball. I mean, the role is just stupid right now.
Yeah, the 25 L10 is super low too for like a guy that
like even at that 0.043 for this coming up week. I think they have 2 games. Yeah, I think they have 2 games. Yeah, but I see like the floor is right around there. I mean, I think that's
yeah.
He's going into a priority. I have a Sorare. He's going to a priority lineup for me.
It does feel low.
Just for the upside versus L10, and you have baked in really bad performances on him.
Right.
Where that L10 is making him, I mean, what did he do last night? 53? In the worst environment for his psyche possible, too.
Was it that high? Yeah, 49.
Okay.
Only 49.
I had that little bonus. Only 49 on an L10 of 25.
Right.
THT in Utah is a good shout, too. until they get healthy. But once Conley's back, I don't know how long Conley's gone, but
It's a knee issue, I think. So he's not.
Conley.
He's no spring chicken. So
no, he's not. So back to depth.
Yeah, over here like searching for deals
while we're hunting another one.
Yeah.
Well, no, I kind of liked where we brought this up, to kind of the injury thing. Obviously, we have Cunningham here at 45, but Lillard was another one that I wanted to talk about, less because of Lillard himself, but just this group that he's in here ranking-wise. So we've got Trae Young at 0.09. Domantas Sabonis is basically half. It's like less than half. And then Lillard is 2/3 of Trae Young. Is that reasonable?
Yeah.
Like, should Trae Young be that high, or should those guys be that low? Like, I feel like it's this weird ground. Like, Ja, I understand. DeJounte Murray probably underpriced also. But, like, should these guys be closer, I guess? Obviously, their L10s are the same, effectively. But
I think Lillard and Trae should be. I think Lillard and Trae should be because they both have kind of the same upside output potential, whereas like Sabonis doesn't really. He put up a 61 recently, but then if you look at everything else, he's kind of floating right around that L10. I just want guys who can go off, and generally that's going to be scoring guards or like high usage guards, or a guy like AD who can put up 5 blocks and 5 steals with 27 rebounds or 21 rebounds, 37 points. Like, not a lot of people can do that, but guys like Lillard can just go out there and score 60 points legitimately shooting alone. Not that he's going to do it a ton, but like Sabonis has got to really accumulate, and he's not going to have big scoring outbursts. So like I would buy Lillard 10 times out of 10 instead of Trae Young right now.
Oh, I think Trae is like the outlier on that group of the guy like I don't want.
And he's been bad.
But like, you know what I was actually just thinking though? Like, I 2 weeks ago wasn't a big fan of him, but Murray is almost like a really fun handcuff type of thing to Trae Young. Handcuff's the wrong term, but like the moment that Trae Young goes out, Murray is like, what's that?
Because he's the better one?
Well, not only because he's still producing enough that you could toss him in something and he's not like killing you, but the moment that Trae gets hurt or Trae gets scuffed up, which is going to happen, like happens to Trae a lot, then he's immediately like a top 10 play of the week. So I wonder if like in this range, that's something that you kind of look for, is like the guy that if the number one dude goes out, he's immediate like a top 5 play of the week. Maybe that's a different strategy of like looking for players, is going, okay, they're fine right now. Like Devin Booker is a great example, right? He's fine when Chris Paul is there, and he's amazing when he's gone.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
Karl Anthony Towns will be a great Nick. No.
Who?
I said Cat. Cat's getting traded. They're so bad. They're so bad.
Going from Julius Randle to Karl Anthony Towns, I feel like they're just the same player, so they may as well just stay.
Here, I just want to say on Westbrook, like Westbrook, Jeremy put, Westbrook's role is not great right now. He's seeing a lot of usage off the bench, but his minutes are actually dropping. And then once LeBron gets there, he's done.
Yeah, he's done. So I want to get back to this for a second. Just for the transparency's sake, I just bought a Ben Simmons limited. You can do that. I'm not gonna let this happen again. So just so everybody, I actually didn't even buy the cheapest one on the market. Just so if anybody else wants to go, I actually spent a little more because of a higher XP. So that cheap one's out there. There was a weird warning too that I was spending more than 1.5 times the last value. Which
what is that?
Is obviously not
true. I told
you
that last night. It freaked me out.
Yeah, I had to double check. I felt bad doing it on the stream here, but I was like, I'm looking at the dollar conversion. I'm like, this is all the same. This is ridiculous. But anyway,
I love it.
Just for pure transparency's sake, here I am.
Lairdinho is going to show up.
2 minutes.
And I'm monitoring the Cade Cunningham market for the people who are now all of a sudden listing him at 0.2 or 0.02 because he might be out for the season. That's going to be my swing.
I was going to say, I kind of love that because if they're not going to mint him anymore.
Right. I'd buy like 5 of them if I wanted. Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about it. Anyway,
You know what the hardest part about that though is like back to like the depth convo. Like the one thing I won't backtrack on the depth convo and why I'm still iffy on it is we still just don't have enough data about how like we were pointing out like cards that seem underpriced relative
sure.
to somebody else. But what happens if once we get to mint 2,700 and there's only 10,000 active players, how much are these worth? And that's just the hardest debate on this game.
So
like they slowed stuff down. Like that was a big thing that helped. They've slowed it down.
yeah, well, they slowed it down and then they ramped it back up.
Okay, I didn't know they ramped it back up. Good.
I mean, not,
and stuff
not
hasn't
nearly
crashed
as
down.
fast as they had been, but I believe they have picked it back up. So the whole price relative to whatever. I remember when early like after we started getting cards minted, Keith, we were like in this range. So it was like,
Yep.
Third week of October. Anthony Davis hit like 0.1, and you're like, that's ridiculous. Like he shouldn't be dropping this much. And relative to everybody else, it was absolutely true. And then his price got cut in half, and we were like, oh,
right.
maybe. So like
we didn't buy.
Right. Like, exactly. So like, I think there is like that point is really important that like nobody knows what like the right prices are, and we won't know until I don't know if we'll ever know. But what you can do is like compare them to prices of other players and just be like, would I rather pay whatever amount for this guy versus 70% for this other guy who scores just as well? And like, that's really how the game is played. It's I think if you try to use this strategy of like, this is how much this guy should be worth, I think you're going to lose a ton of money because like, we just don't know what you think somebody is worth does not necessarily mean that's what everyone thinks. And that's just how you get in trouble. That's all.
So Hoop and I actually talked about this on our other little pod together, the grind. And one thing that I think we agreed on, Hoop, tell me if you disagree, but is I do think it's really important to kind of almost like have your gallery of guys that you know are long term. Like I have a Luka, I'm gonna have a Luka forever because I'm gonna keep playing. Like this Luka isn't moving out of my gallery. But Norm Powell, who I just picked up, is a guy that is very transient. John Conchar is very transient in my gallery. I am not planning to have them. I'm sure they are very nice guys and very talented basketball players. But if I don't have them in a week, I'm not going to be like, oh man, I really got to go pick another guy back up. So I think it's important, specifically in NBA because of the L10s, to just know who are the guys that I'm keeping in my gallery. And because I'm going to play them every single week and they have a direct purpose. And a guy, Alex is probably laughing because of John Morant. That was not a shot, but a guy that
I'm looking at his page right now.
Yeah, but what are your opinion? Like both Laird and Alex on that. Like I do think that, like to me, I have Giannis, I have Luka, I have an Embiid, and I have a Jokic, and none of them, no matter what their price graphs do, I'm not listing them. It doesn't matter how much they explode.
I feel that way. That is what I was going to do with Ja. And then for some reason, in a moment of weakness, I listed him. But I'm going to do that with Luka. But basically, my strategy is as soon as somebody is not in any of my lineups and I can sell them for a profit, like I make my lineups and then I list everybody who's not in it. If I can profit. Yes.
Wow.
I never have like ETH sitting. I'm spinning it into something else and then trying to get as liquid as possible to get that next crop of guys who I need in my lineup to make it pop. And I have sold pretty much every reward that I've won. I'm seeing a lot of turnover in my gallery. Ideally, I would be there and have guys that I just never sell. But because of the uptick in the market recently, like I sold Keith, and I know you had the same sort of situation. Like I sold 17, 18 guys in a day because I could profit from them and they weren't going to be in my lineup, or they got me to a higher step. And I'm flipping a lot. at this point.
Yeah.
I think I think there's such a window for it in this game, because especially as people start to onboard on the platform, like they just want guys, not necessarily the best guys. They just want lineups. So if I have a guy who's a 38 and he projects at the same as the guy I have at an L10 of 36, I'll just sell them and try and make my lineup better and just generate rewards and probably sell that. But the guys who I'm holding are the guys who I bought, like John Collins at 0.05 early because he made sense in my first lineup, and now he's 0.02, and he's a lifer. And then I sit him this week. But yeah, those are the guys I'm holding, which they'll come around and that's fine. But I'm never selling him for 0.05.
Hold on. So I missed it on. So is Luca a conversation for you to sell?
No, not him.
Okay, so that's more okay. So,
but like
okay,
just
good.
him.
So
it's
we
like
are on
him.
a similar point.
And Ja was going to be the same.
But you might. Ja Morant should have been the same for you.
Yeah,
should
I
have
goofed.
been.
I goofed.
Yeah, you goofed. It's okay. Like it happens. You panicked, and now we learned that. Laird, did you actually bring up that point? Do you want to bring up the injury superstar point?
That you should just buy them?
Or that you should never sell them when they get hurt?
Oh yeah, certainly never sell. Well, see, I understand why people do it, but
Right.
I think it's a tremendous mistake if you can like survive without
Right.
doing it. Like selling low is just. It's just
Well, no,
not
selling.
I will say
Go ahead.
that I sold my Ja and then bought a rare team.
Yeah, no, I get that.
So it stunk.
It
I
works.
also sold my Jason Tatum. I sold both of them because as soon as the new L10s came through, I ran my lineup and it just got worse because those two went up, and I was like,
Yeah.
all right, I can replace Jason Tatum with Anthony Davis and I can save a
Yep.
couple of L10s. And now Anthony Davis is a 51 and he's about to be like a 55 next week.
Yeah.
He might be, the
But-
third highest L10 or something like that. And then I'll probably flip him if someone will take him.
So I kind of on my point though, I think you just maybe I broadened it too much. I think there might only be like 2 to 3 guys that you actually should just keep in your galleries.
So
Because like to me, Anthony
Jonathan
Davis is
Kuminga.
exactly the
definitely Kuminga.
Right.
I mean, it's obviously Doncic, Giannis, Kuminga
Yes.
are the 3 most important
Right.
players in the game.
The Royal
But,
Triumvirate.
like you could probably put like Embiid in there because we've seen Embiid have like the most silly upside ever at this point, right? You could tell me Curry is in there. I'm on board with that, but it might only be like for like I sold a Durant rare because, and you guys know this, and I mean I'm not a small gallery by any means that like I had to do it to be able to play the next week. But the reason I sold the Durant rare is I'm just like his L10 is he just consistently is putting out like 45 to 55 with an L10 in the 50s. Looks like it dropped just in time. It's 49. But I'm like,
I think that
he was hurting me more than anything.
Yeah, I think Durant's a little bit of a different situation though, because Kyrie's return changes a lot of that situation. And so like this run up came up with his run up of points that came about because Kyrie was out. And then like Kyrie comes back and he's just not as great of a play. But to go back to your like star selling thing, that reminded me of like basically a topic that we had discussed on a previous show of the trading opportunities on Sorare NBA are not with the stars. Usually, like stars don't move drastically because they're already expensive. And like Alex has sold some stars, but like he's not selling stars for like 4x what he bought. Like you can 4x
for the
a Kuminga
liquidity
or a Conchar. Like, so I'm fully like okay with the strategy of like, these are my stars. I'm going to own them forever. I'm going to build my lineups around them and I'll play them every week. And that's kind of what I was trying to say to you, Keith, earlier this week, where you were like, this game is clearly not for casuals. But like, if you have some stars, like, and you're just like, all right, let me just buy some guys to put in every week. Like, that's different than like, let me remake my lineup every week, because that takes a lot of work. And obviously you get in trouble when you have like the Anthony Davis L10 of 45 versus 55. But I think like moving in and out of stars is not that necessary. Almost unless they like become prohibitive plays L10 wise. But that reminded me the other question I wanted to bring up when we're talking about these guys that we were like, theoretically, they're underpriced. Alex, where do you put guys like this who have like L10s of 42 to 47 with expected scores of 42 to 47? Like, you do need guys who like score 50. Yeah. And like these guys theoretically have the easier paths to that. But you like, they take up a ton of L10 cap space. So like, are these guys actually priced correctly? Because they're like kind of hard to play. And some of them have really big upside, but like some of them don't. Like, where do they fit?
I mean, it's a case by case basis, but it's still my favorite range in the game. It's still, these are all, like low 40s guys. I bought Kristaps Porzingis when he was at 35, and then he popped a couple of 60s, and then I sold him. And they're my favorite guys. It depends. Like Porzingis at that point, I probably wouldn't play him, but Butler has put up 80s when he needs to in the playoffs. It's a different situation. Kyrie at 43, that's amazing. Ja Morant was a 43 when I bought him. Yeah, he's a 43 now. That is your third guy. His price is star level, and it should be, but Trae Young, Dame Lillard, Desmond Bane, all of those guys they're the ones who make the biggest difference in your lineup. You're kind of talking about how stars, like, their prices aren't going to change that much because their output is kind of similar. But like, I have no problem changing out stars, even at the top end, if it means that it's going to make my lineup better. Because like I kind of said it at the beginning of the show, I know I'm kind of deviating way off the path here, but there's always somebody projection wise who allows you to change things up. Like, I looked at Tatum and I looked at AD, and I was like, I can sell Tatum, free up 0.05 ETH, reinvest it in AD, and he has just as much of a chance to put up an 89 like he did last night, and then it makes the rest of my lineup better. So all of that to say that if me dropping from Tatum's 55 to Davis's 49 is going to help me move up from Harrison Barnes to Desmond Bane, healthy Desmond Bane, then that's worth a ton, especially if I can profit. So I think, like, if you just look at these guys, you kind of know who is capable of exploding.
Yeah.
Lillard, Ball, Bane, Garland, all those guys can have 60 plus games fairly easily. Paolo, Miles Turner have had projected in the 80s at times. Like, I love these guys. These are
upside projection in the 80s.
Yes, upside projection in the 80s. Not a median projection, but you can take two of these guys with the free space of Luka. Say you play Turner and Paolo. That's what, 78. You got 40, 42 left. You can find a Jovic for 6, and you can play another. You can play Fred VanVleet. You can play Paul George. The margins towards the top open up a lot at the bottom, because the difference between some of those 38 guys and some of the 34 guys, I think, is gigantic.
So did you just make the point that you should have depth up top and depth really down low, and just plug whoever in the middle is good that week?
I guess. I mean, it depends on how much. It depends on how much work you want to do. That's the thing. Like,
right, that's a great point.
It wasn't really depth up top, though. He's talking about trading in and out up top.
Yeah.
Have Luka, CC Laird.
Start with Luka, but yeah, you can. I would cycle out more. I think a lot of those high 40 guys can find themselves down in the 39, 38 range quite often, and
agreed.
I think you just cycle the big guys. I don't know. It's hard. I don't know that I can nail it down to one specific spot. I think you could definitely fill in at the bottom. I think there's less reason to have depth at the bottom than even in this middle range or up top, just because of the way that they churn in and out. But it's hard to say. It's very budget dependent. But as far as a roster building, lineup building perspective, this is the range that I absolutely love.
I think the problem with buying a lot of depth at the bottom is that you're most likely ending up with a lot of cards, like dead cards, that you're not using. In the 1 week that they become viable, I hate to go back to this, you should probably sell them.
Yep.
So like every single game week where I have a card like, well, Kuminga is untouchable, so I'm not even going to put him in. But like Jovic last week, was that last week? It feels like a month ago. Like looking back, and I hate to do like a results over process, but I actually think the process, I think the results actually proved that the process was wrong. Or yeah, like I think that's what it was. And like we always say, like, don't do that, but I actually we don't know what the right process is yet. But I think basically like I jammed in Jovic, and what I thought was like, I don't even remember where I'm pretty sure I played one in contender and one in champion. But like if you get these guys right, and I guess this is kind of the argument to like buy a bunch of garbage guys, but like if they're right, then the odds that you outscore everyone else with that lineup are lower than just what you'll make if you sell. And I've done it like I've done, the sample size is really small, but I have yet to have the play work. Like the sell is always the answer so far. And so I sold my Jovic rare because I was able to profit on that. And this Jovic limited that I'm sitting on is like, that's the other thing that Keith, you were talking about like at the beginning, that if you find one of these guys early, like buy the rare, because rares tend not to tank nearly as much as limiteds for a variety of reasons. And so, and I'll also argue that the low L10 rare cheat codes are more valuable because of what we were going back to. If you play 3 rares in champion, in rare champion, make them the cheap ones, and then throw in Luka and Embiid.
And there's just less of them. So the other point within what you just said, Laird, I want to just add on to is the reason why you probably should sell if you were stashing these guys in hopes to like, ultimately become more profitable. It would be my assumption why you did it was to like make money in doing it. There wasn't exactly a ton of fun in just stashing a ton of guys, but you're probably the people that you're selling into are the bigger galleries that are going to pay these inflated prices for the guys that they're late on because they think they're so close to a podium, because they have Luka, Giannis, Jokic now as a low L10, and now all of a sudden Jovic as a 6 can allow those 3 guys can be played together. Whereas if you're staring at your lineup and you go, first thing that came to mind, Alex, sorry, but Darius Garland is my best player. Like, what are we doing here? Like, if you're going to take that into champ, you're wasting Jovic. You're wasting that L10 of that you bought him at $5 and now he's worth $30. You are probably not going to win a $25 plus card. And you should potentially just take the money and run and just keep building your depth so that you can have Luka instead of Garland. Like, keep stacking those wins and get the card you need.
What do you think about this strategy that Jeremy Graham brought up? Double dip when buying. Just buy 2 and have one of them pay for the other.
Oh God! I mean, I always buy.
Well, you buy 7.
I buy as many as I can. When I feel so, can we just do we have like 2 minutes just to talk about that one other subject with the multiples? Is the other thing I've noticed with the whole flipping game, be very, very careful about how long you set on a flip, because like Harrell, you guys know this one, but like Montrezl Harrell, what was that? Monday morning it came out that Embiid was going to be out.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought this up.
Okay, everybody runs to Harrell, including me. I had like 4 limiteds, 2 rares, and then I showed you guys the first time I've done it. I bought a super rare of him too, and I was like, okay, I might play him, I might set on him. Like, that's why I like to buy multiple twos, because I just like I have freedom if I want to play them or if I decide to sell them. I have enough. And then it ended up coming out. who was it by the end of the day? He wasn't even by far the best value. I can't remember. Like Kuminga came out like 2 hours later. The Warriors was like 11, and the Warriors stuff was at 1. And now all of a sudden, Harrell's price, like on that November 22nd after the middle finger, that was the same day. That was before lock. He tanked before lock. And he started. It wasn't like he became lesser of a play. He became lesser of a play because he wasn't even a top 5 L10 low guy by the time lock happened.
Right. So like his L10 didn't change and his projection didn't change. And then
he started.
Just became worthless.
And he started before lock.
Right.
And we knew he started. It wasn't like all of a sudden it was like, the Flynn Banton thing where Flynn didn't start, but Banton did. And then everything flipped. Everything that was supposed to happen with Harrell before the game happened. And he still tanked because Kuminga became obviously a better play. DiVincenzo, Moody, Green, all those guys. And then I think there was other news too.
Wasn't a bunch of the Clippers?
I don't remember. Kawhi actually played, but now Kawhi will be gone forever again.
Was it Paul Reed?
I mean, even when Paul Reed was his backup. Paul Reed was his backup. That outplayed him.
Right.
But that was last night. That was technically last night.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah, I think, you brought up this point. I'm glad you brought it up here because we were talking about it previously, that like the presumed cheat code, the first one, isn't always the one that ends up being the cheat code going in. And it happens like before lock.
Every week.
It happens every game week every situation. And not to say that like the first one is not, is always not the top one. Like it's possible that they are, but yeah, if you're buying these guys like right away, you're somebody who's going to let me go sweep the floor on this new cheat code, waiting to flip. Like the longer you hold, like obviously your risk goes way up because if Jonathan Kuminga comes walking through that door, you're in trouble.
So let's also just joke about this. Happened to both you and I, Laird, last week with Miami. We thought we nailed it with Gabe Vincent. He fit so perfect. And then what ended up happening? Gabe Vincent, it's like he's playing. Oh, Gabe Vincent's questionable. Gabe Vincent's out within like 1 hour.
It was like
oh, and you still did profit.
Yeah. So I bought, let's see, 453.
Poor guy that bought it from you.
548. Like less than an hour. I had this card. Like I bought this card and I put him right in the lineup and I was like, let's go. And then I saw the underdog or UDM with something and it was like Vincent's questionable. And I'm like, all right, whatever. And you were like,
it's okay.
Vincent's out. I was setting lineups. And I was like, my son is here. And he was like, oh, we're going to play Vincent. I was like, hold on. Stop talking to me. Let me list them. List it. And I'm like, I'm going to be sitting on this car for months. And then it's sold. And I was just like, and I sent it to you. And you were like, somebody didn't see the news yet. And I was like, And
poor guy or gal.
It happens. Yeah.
No, that one was the most extreme because he literally went from, because remember all that Miami stuff came out like really like fast. It was like all these guys are questionable, including your guy Dwayne Dedman, who's always questionable.
Yeah, shocking.
But it was like all these guys are questionable, and then it just started trickling out. And you're like, can you just not release it in one report, Miami? Why are you doing like an out every 10 minutes?
Yeah.
I'll just say this for anybody that doesn't follow the Underdog NBA handle, run by an absolute legend that does the news. I don't know how he does it as fast as he does, but the dreaded one that, is the sign that you should have a piece is when he sends the tweet and he says, Miami players available, which essentially means there's so many guys out. He just would rather list who's in, not out.
Kyle Lowry, apparently, like just the Iron Man, Kyle Lowry here.
Oh my God! What did he drop? Like 60 or 70? That was insane.
I think he got up to 70.
70.
That was so good.
Higher than that. I thought it was like a 79 or something like that.
Was it even that high? 67.
No.
What a legend, though. And then he tanks his 12 there just to keep his L10 in line. He then produced a 12 on the same game week, I'm assuming.
I think it was.
That was
What a legend. He plays so rare. He plays so rare. He gets
They
it.
had no
Sunday, Monday.
gas.
Well, because it went to overtime too. It went
Yeah.
to overtime as well. They had
50
6
minutes.
players or 7 players playing.
They were killing them too in that Wizards game.
Mhm.
Like, yeah,
So good. That was so good.
50 minutes. That's wild. Yeah. And where's he? L10 to 32.
Well, that's what I'm saying. He was so good to your gallery that he decided that 62 might hurt you, so he dropped the 12 afterwards, just to keep it in line.
So good. What did his rares go for these days? $100? I don't know how much that is. 0.08. Would you rather have Kyle Lowry or Jonathan Kuminga? Rares.
It's not even a question.
Poor Kyle.
Poor Kyle. I mean, you just have to. It's just the reality of, like, there's like one instance that you're going to be excited to play Kyle Lowry, and it's when Jay Fan tweets out Miami players available, and he's happens to be one of them.
I mean, it's happened like twice in 3 games.
Oh my God, I know.
Let's go.
I always was making fun of Memphis as being the team at the end of the season that always seemed to lose half their team. It's Miami's to bug early this season.
Yeah, they're just doing it in November.
Everybody's tanking so bad. It's fun.
And the team that was supposed to be tanking is winning the West.
Right.
Oh, no, hold on. All the teams that we thought were going to tank, OKC, Utah, Indiana, the teams that we were sure going to suck, all of them are like in the playoff hunt.
Mm-hmm.
So good.
They're maximizing their draft capital at the front end of the season.
That's what it is.
The trade deadline comes where Mike Conley got to get that knee right.
I thought the funniest thing I was listening to a pod and they were joking how SGA was like all the contenders should go for SGA, and now Oklahoma City should be like, so who can we go trade for to put around SGA, because you guys sure as hell aren't getting him anymore.
Right.
This is amazing. It's amazing. It's only November.
Right.
No. So Jeremy did the last note, then I'll shut up. But I heard this about the Spurs. It's so good. The Spurs right now are like mastering tanking. Like, I heard this last night, but they were playing the Lakers and they went, oh, you know what? Let's sit Jakob Poeltl, the only big guy that we have that could contend with AD in the Lakers size. And then the next night, it was like they were playing Steph. And they're like, you know what? Trey Jones is a half-decent defender. Let's sit him so that Steph can go off. And they're like purposely sitting whoever the best defender is for the next game. It's amazing. So there's nobody's worse than the Spurs right now. They're purposely tanking and doing it strategically.
They're building character. It's like how the Cavs put Isaac Okoro on the best player every single game for the entire first year. Yeah, and they're like, all right, sink or swim, buddy. And Pop's just doing that with the whole team.
Yeah. Huh.
Chat might be our sign that we're ready to go. The bots have come in.
I think it is. Yeah, for sure. All right. So thank you to everybody who has joined us live. If you guys would please hit the like button, that's always really appreciated. If you could subscribe to the channel, share it with anybody who's interested in Sorare NBA who hasn't jumped in yet. We're going to keep these strategy shows kind of going, talking about different things every week, specifically just how we get better at this game, kind of what we think about the market, how we think we can take advantage of those. So if there are any topics you guys would like us to cover, feel free to reach out to me. You can get me on Twitter at Andrew M. Laird. Alex is at Lex Hooper. Keith is at GatorGuy231. Did I point the right way? No, I didn't. Darn. I always get that mixed up.
Close enough.
Anyway, find us there. Happy to discuss pretty much anything about Sorare NBA. So hit us up. We'll be back next week. So happy Thanksgiving to all, and we'll see you then. Good luck.